Hey, beautiful family. Welcome back to the channel. If you're just joining us, don't worry, you're right on time because we're diving into part 2 of this deeply emotional and inspiring story. Quick recap of part 1. We met Emily, a struggling young mother living on the streets of Lagos, with nothing but her baby Grace and a heart full of hope. One rainy morning, her life took a shocking turn when she crossed paths with Jonathan, a wealthy and compassionate businessman. From a quiet roadside moment to a warm meal in a modest restaurant, Jonathan showed her kindness she never expected. But just as hope began to bloom, the card he gave her, the lifeline to a better future, was lost. So what happens now? Will fate reunite them? Or will life take a different turn? If you haven't seen part 1 yet, pause this video and go check it out. It's a must-watch. Grab a drink, get comfortable, and let's continue this unforgettable journey in part 2. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. Let's get started. He stood abruptly, tucked the card into his coat, and walked out. As the SUV pulled out of the street, its tinted windows glided silently past the crowd and past Emily, who was just a few steps away, rounding the corner in a desperate rush toward the restaurant. She arrived breathless, scanning the entrance, the floor, the corners of the outdoor seating. She went straight to the booth where she and Jonathan had eaten earlier. It was empty, clean. No card, no trace. She turned to the waitress. "Please," Emily said, her voice shaking. "Did anyone find a small card here this morning?" "A man gave it to me. It had his number." The waitress thought for a moment, then shook her head. "No, madam, we cleaned everything. There was nothing like that." Emily nodded slowly, her legs giving way as she stepped outside. She sat back on the bench, her arms wrapped around Grace. The child stirred softly, and Emily kissed her cheek. "I'm so sorry, my baby. I failed you again." Meanwhile, back at Jonathan's mansion in Ikoyi, the compound buzzed with celebration. His younger brother, Nathan Blake, had just returned after 17 years abroad in Atlanta. The staff had prepared everything: fried rice, grilled chicken, goat meat, and pounded yam. Jonathan stood on the balcony, waiting with anticipation. Nathan's plane had landed. The driver had been sent to pick him up. Music played softly inside the house as laughter echoed from the kitchen. But in another part of Lagos, Emily was still seated on a roadside bench, holding her child with no idea that she had missed Jonathan by less than 60 seconds. She sighed and whispered, "I'll go back there tomorrow. Maybe he'll pass by again." Hope, once again, became her only companion. The sun blazed over Lagos the next morning. The air was thick with humidity, and even the early hours felt like midday. Emily woke up on the cold cement floor of an unfinished building near the bridge and machine. It was dark, damp, and windowless, but it was the only shelter she could find. Grace lay beside her, fast asleep, wrapped tightly in a thin wrapper to protect her from mosquitoes that had feasted on them through the night. Emily didn't sleep much. Her mind was heavy with regret and hope battling for space in her chest. She thought of Jonathan Blake, his voice, his eyes, his unexpected kindness. She remembered the warm food, the way he didn't judge her, the promise of a safe place. And then she remembered the card, the one she had lost. But as she sat up and looked at her daughter's tiny face, something lit up in her eyes again. "We're going back," she said softly, "to that same place. Maybe he'll pass by again." By 8 a.m., Emily was already standing at the same corner on the road near Yaba. She wore the same dress, but it had been washed overnight and dried under moonlight. Grace was tied gently to her back with a clean wrapper. Emily didn't stretch out her hands this time. She didn't beg, she just waited, watching. In Ikoyi, the celebration was already underway. Jonathan's brother Nathan had arrived. The gates opened wide as the black SUV pulled into the compound. Nathan stepped out, a tall, sharp-featured man with a warm smile and American swag. Jonathan ran out of the house, arms wide. "Nathan!" "John," Nathan laughed. "You look different, man. Richer. And you look taller." They hugged tightly. Their friends cheered. The family reunion brought life to the Blake household. Food was served in abundance. The chef moved quickly between the kitchen and the dining room. Music played from the speakers, and the house echoed with joy. But one person wasn't smiling: the driver. He stood silently by the SUV, hands folded, eyes distant. The image of the woman from yesterday haunted him. As he had picked Nathan up from the airport earlier, the car had slowed in traffic. That was when he saw her again, Emily, standing at the same corner, the same child wrapped to her back, her face pale but determined. He recognized her immediately. His heart beat faster, and his palms clenched on the steering wheel. Should I stop? Should I call Mr. Jonathan? But Nathan had just arrived, and everything was happening so fast. So he kept driving. But he couldn't shake the image from his mind. Now, standing near the front door as everyone celebrated, he made up his mind. Inside, Jonathan and Nathan were laughing with old friends when the driver stepped into the hallway and waited patiently until Jonathan passed by on his way to the kitchen. "Sir," he said quietly. Jonathan turned, still smiling. "Yes?" "I saw her," the driver said. Jonathan's face changed immediately. The smile dropped. "Who?" "The woman from yesterday, sir, with the baby." His voice was steady. "She was standing in the same spot, the same clothes. She looked like she was waiting." Jonathan's heart stilled. He remembered the card, crumpled and wet. He remembered thinking she had thrown it away. But now, he stared down at the floor, his voice softer. Maybe she didn't mean to lose it. He looked up at the driver. "Go back, now. If she's still there, bring her here. But ask her why she didn't call." The driver nodded immediately. "Yes, sir." Meanwhile, Emily was still standing at the roadside, her feet aching from hours of waiting. The sun was scorching now, and Grace was sweating on her back. Emily adjusted the baby gently and looked up one last time. "Maybe he's not coming," she whispered. "Maybe he went a different way today." She was just about to turn and walk away when she heard the familiar voice. "Madam!" She turned fast. A red SUV had pulled up. The driver rolled down the window and stepped out. It was the same man from yesterday, the one who had opened the car for her. Her heart leapt. He walked toward her, his voice calm but firm. "Mr. Blake sent me. Why didn't you call?" Emily didn't answer at first. Tears filled her eyes. "I lost the card," she said softly. "I searched everywhere. I even went back to the restaurant, but I couldn't find it." She looked down, ashamed. "I don't have a phone, sir. I've not had one since I gave birth." The driver studied her face. She wasn't lying. He saw the weariness, the sincerity, the quiet desperation in her voice. He nodded slowly. "Come with me." Emily climbed into the SUV, holding Grace tightly. As they drove away, she looked out the window and whispered, "Thank you, God. Thank you." The red SUV glided through the open gates of the Blake mansion in Ikoyi. For a moment, Emily held her breath. She had never seen anything so grand. The compound was spotless, the gardens manicured like a painting. The house stood tall and elegant, with marble steps and a chandelier visible even from outside. As the SUV rolled to a stop beneath the carport, the driver stepped out quickly and opened the rear door. Emily stepped down slowly, clutching Grace tightly to her chest. Her feet felt like they didn't belong here. This wasn't her world. It was too clean, too quiet, too beautiful. The driver gave her a small, encouraging nod. "Come, he's waiting." They walked toward the house. Inside, laughter floated from the living room. Jonathan, Nathan, and a few close friends were talking and sharing drinks. As soon as Jonathan looked up and saw her, his smile faded into something more serious. He stood slowly, eyes locked on Emily, as if confirming she was truly there. Emily took a few quick steps forward, then stopped. Her knees buckled, and she knelt down immediately in respect. "Good afternoon, sir. I'm sorry, I didn't call. I lost the card." Jonathan moved quickly, reaching out to stop her from kneeling. "No, please," he said gently. "You don't need to kneel." He helped her to her feet. All eyes in the living room were on them now. No one said a word, but questions hung in the air. Jonathan turned to the group and said calmly, "Excuse us." Then he led Emily through a quiet corridor down to a guest room. The room was spacious, with clean sheets, soft curtains, and a private bathroom. A new scent like lavender lingered in the air. He opened the door and turned to her. "Please, take a proper bath. You and your baby, you can rest here for now." Emily stood speechless for a second, then nodded. "Thank you, sir. Thank you." Jonathan left the room and went straight to the kitchen. He called the chef. "There's a guest in the downstairs room," he said. "Make sure she gets hot food. Nothing rushed. Cook properly." "Yes, sir," the chef replied at once. A few hours later, after the guests had left and the house was quiet again, Jonathan returned to the sitting room where his brother Nathan sat. They were both sipping tea when Emily stepped in quietly. She wore clean, soft clothes the maid had given her. Her hair was combed, her skin freshly bathed, and in her arms, baby Grace slept peacefully. Nathan turned and smiled politely. Jonathan motioned for her to sit. "Emily," he said softly, "you said you lost the card." She nodded. "Yes, sir. I hid it in Grace's shirt after you gave it to me. I thought it was safe, but when I reached back to where we met, it was gone. I tried to go back to the restaurant, hoping someone found it, but it wasn't there." She paused, then added, "I haven't had a phone for months. The one I used before Grace was born and got damaged. I never had money to fix it." Nathan listened quietly, observing every word, every detail. Jonathan looked at the baby in her arms, then at her, this woman who'd endured far more than anyone should. Jonathan leaned forward, his tone steady. "I can't undo the pain you've lived through, but I can help build what comes next. Is there any skill you have? Something you love doing? A business you'd want to start?" Emily blinked slowly, unsure if she had heard him right. I used to help my auntie sell groceries in Ibadan," she said. "I know how to keep a market stall. I used to organize her books, count stock, balance the day's sales." Jonathan nodded. "Then we'll start there." Her lips parted slightly. "Sir? Really?" "You'll stay here for now," he said, "until I can find a safe, clean apartment for you and Grace. You won't go back to the street. Not again." Tears filled her eyes again, but this time they weren't just from pain, they were from hope. She looked at Grace, then at Jonathan. "Thank you," she whispered. Nathan leaned back quietly and gave his brother a nod of respect. Jonathan said nothing more, but inside he had made a silent vow this was just the beginning. 3 mornings later, Emily awoke in the guest room of the Blake mansion, sunlight streaming through the cream-colored curtains. Grace was already awake, giggling softly and reaching for her mother's face. Emily smiled a genuine smile, one that reached her tired eyes for the first time in months. She sat up slowly, kissed Grace's forehead, and whispered, "We're safe now." Just then, there was a knock at the door. Jonathan stood outside with a calm smile. "Good morning," he said. "Are you ready to go out?" "Out?" Emily asked, surprised. "Yes, you and Grace need something important." Moments later, they were in the car, driving through the busy streets of Lagos. This time, Emily didn't feel out of place in the SUV. She still held Grace close, but now with less fear, more gratitude. As they drove past markets and schools and Lagos traffic, she silently prayed blessings over the man beside her. Their first stop was a baby store in Lekki. Jonathan led her through the aisles and said, "Pick anything you need for Grace and for yourself." Emily's eyes widened. "Sir, are you sure?" "I'm very sure," he replied with a warm smile. "You both deserve it." Hesitant at first, Emily finally allowed herself to browse. She touched soft baby blankets, clean diapers, tiny clothes, bottles, formula. For herself, she picked a few new dresses and a sturdy pair of sandals. Jonathan didn't flinch once at the cashier. He paid for everything. Their next stop was a mobile phone shop. Jonathan bought her a brand new smartphone and helped her register a new SIM card. Then they visited a telecom center where he helped her retrieve her old number. Emily clutched the phone like it was made of gold. "Thank you, sir," she whispered for the 100th time. "I don't even know how to say it anymore." You've said it enough, Jonathan replied gently. Later that evening, when they returned to the mansion, Nathan was already home. He greeted Emily with a smile, then turned to Jonathan. There's somewhere I'd like us to visit tomorrow, and I'd like Emily to come too. Jonathan raised an eyebrow. Where? Nathan didn't explain. He simply said, Trust me. The next morning, after a simple breakfast, the three of them left the house together, Nathan driving, Jonathan beside him, and Emily in the back seat, holding Grace, who was fast asleep. She had no idea what the day would bring, but her heart remained open. They drove through Victoria Island, then into a quieter part of the city with newer buildings. After a few turns, the car stopped in front of a tall, modern apartment block. It was freshly painted, with flowers by the entrance and a security post by the gate. Emily looked around, confused. Where are we? She asked. Nathan stepped out first and turned to her. Come, he said. Jonathan followed quietly. As they walked into the compound, Nathan's pace slowed. He turned around and looked at Emily. His voice softened. When I heard your story, he began, I thought about our mother. Emily's brows pulled together. She listened. She was a single mother too, Nathan continued. She raised Jonathan and me by herself. I used to wake up at night and hear her crying. Alone. We couldn't help her. Back then, we were too small. And then she died before we made money. Before we could show her what she meant to us. Emily's eyes welled up. Nathan reached into his pocket and brought out a small silver key. This place, he said gently, is for you and Grace. It's yours now. Emily gasped, her knees giving way, as she dropped to the ground, crying uncontrollably. God! Oh my God! What did I do to deserve this? Jonathan walked over, helping her up. His voice was low. We saw your heart. That's enough. Nathan smiled, then added, and one more thing, we're opening a small supermarket nearby. It'll be yours to run. Don't worry, we'll get a manager to support you until you're ready to handle it fully. Emily wept. She couldn't speak. She could only hold Grace tighter and whisper, Thank you. Thank you. Her life, so full of silence, sorrow, and street corners, had just changed forever. Weeks passed, and life began to bloom in ways Emily never thought possible. Her new apartment was modest but beautiful, painted soft beige with clean tiles, a working kitchen, a safe crib for Grace, and her name on the lease. Every evening she sat by the window, feeding Grace, sometimes too emotional to eat herself, wondering how her story had turned so drastically. And then there was the supermarket. It opened 2 weeks after she moved in. Nathan named it HopeMart and insisted Emily be the face of it. She spent her days at the counter, learning how to manage inventory, smiling at customers, and writing down daily sales. Jonathan even hired a retired school teacher to help her learn basic bookkeeping and customer service. Grace stayed with her in the office room inside the shop, asleep in a small white crib as her mother worked. The days were long but satisfying. For the first time in years, Emily had a reason to wake up smiling. And every evening when she looked at the sleeping baby on her lap, she whispered, We're not just surviving anymore. We're living. One warm Tuesday afternoon, Emily sat inside the shop's small back office going through the day's accounts when her phone rang. It was a number she didn't recognize foreign. Her brows furrowed, unsure whether to answer. Something inside her told her to pick it up. She pressed the green button. Hello? A woman's voice responded, soft, steady, and heavy with emotion. Hello, is this Emily Carter? Yes, this is she, Emily replied cautiously. There was a pause. Then the woman said, I'm calling from Lome, Togo. My name is Evelyn. I'm Henry's cousin. At the mention of his name, Emily's breath caught in her chest. She sat upright, her heart pounding. Henry, her voice cracked. You mean Grace's father?